Hey everyone. Today, we're thrilled to launch the most significant update to Invoke this year, and maybe ever, Invoke 5.0. This release introduces the Control Canvas, a new tool to generate, iterate, and refine images with unprecedented control and flexibility. We're also announcing integration with the hugely popular Flux models, with options available for both commercial and non-commercial use. And finally, we've recently made some improvements not yet covered in a release video that make it easy to save, share, and reuse your favorite prompts. We'll catch up on prompt templates this video as well. Rather than tell you about it, let's show some of the new things it can do. To start, you may notice some things have moved around. Just to orient you before we dive into the workflow, we've combined the Generation and Canvas tab into one. You now have a toggle next to your Invoke toolbar that lets you choose whether you want to send to the gallery or send to the canvas. Sending to the gallery will generate and save the image directly to your gallery. This is very similar to the generation mode of previous Invoke versions, while sending to the canvas will stage the changes in your canvas as a new layer on top of the image. And yes, I did say layers. We'll get to that in a second. You can open the gallery viewer by hitting the open and close viewer in the top right corner. Closing the viewer will take you back to the canvas. The Layers tab has also moved to the right-hand side. Now, to get started, we'll go to my gallery. I've uploaded an in-progress control image, and I'll drag that directly to my canvas. With this in-progress sketch, I had this idea of kind of like a multi-tier futuristic estate built into a mountain. This is kind of pulling from some of those images that were generated and kind of getting that initial control sketch down. Now, I'm going to turn this into a control layer to guide the generation process, but I want to also go ahead and finish out some of the details. It's not quite exactly what I wanted in this image. And with the new control canvas, you can now edit control layers directly. Here, I'm going to add in a mountain in the background. So let's go ahead and do that. With that mountain in place, I think I also want to make sure that this road is elevated. So I'll give it a little bit more of like a bridge-like look. And actually, I don't think I want this moon here. So I'm just going to go ahead and erase that out. I've got a prompt ready for this, and I'll go ahead and add that in. And I'll also choose a prompt template. What this is going to do is it's going to add some pre-baked prompt terms into my prompt, both in the positive and negative. A number of pre-baked default templates are provided, but you can also create your own. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to use the environment art prompt template, and we'll go ahead and generate our image. I can see where it picked up a lot of what I had drawn in. I am going to go ahead and bring down the instep just a tad so that we can get some of these lines a little bit of freedom to breathe. And I think this looks pretty good. I'm going to try switching to a different style just to see if I get something a little bit different. And we'll go ahead and evaluate. I think this one's probably the one that I like the most. Now, even with all of these options, I think it probably would help if I gave it a little bit of guidance on what I'm expecting in this image. So I'm going to discard all of these, and I'm going to go ahead and add a regional guidance layer. Right, now that I've got my regional guidance in and my control image, I actually have a lot more influence over this generation process. And before I generate, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the scribble model. This will give me just a little bit more flexibility in the sketch, and we'll go ahead and generate. Now we can see how the 4 regions I added really helped bring this together. The scribble model also helped as well. But I now have my futuristic terraced structure. I've got my elevated road coming into a city, and I've got this magnificent towering rock formation off in the distance, which is really, really cool. So I like how we're looking, but I want to add some more plants into this image. Um, what I think I'm going to do is maybe just quickly generate some additional content in a different area. So I'm going to go ahead and take my bounding box off to the side. My control image and my regional guidance are both staying directly over the image. So I'm actually generating in a new area that doesn't have any regional guidance or control layers. I could turn these off by disabling each of these layers, but I don't really need to because I'm off in a different area. And so I'm going to take out my prompt and I'm going to add little bit of a silly prompt here, but looking for a tree. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new raster layer because I want to guide this generation. I'm going to pick a background from my original image, and I'm going to try to pick up some colors from the original image as well. So we'll take some of this green. Some of this brown as well. And we'll keep this at a pretty high denoising strength. Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and accept that. I'll delete out my original sketch. And now I've got a tree that I can kind of copy and duplicate around. I'm going to quickly erase some of this background. And I don't need it to be perfect. I'm just going to use this as a little bit of like a cutout to kind of place that into the image. But we'll take that for bounding box back and go ahead and move this over. I'm using the move hotkey, which is V. There are a couple of hotkey differences in the canvas. We'll do a deep dive on some of the hotkey changes as we cover future videos. But I'm able to move this layer around. I can see where the control image is kind of sitting over this and where things are going to be there. I'll go ahead and transform this and bring this down as a smaller image, and I can then kind of add this where I want. Now, when I'm placing the image, I can use the control hotkey to kind of get a little bit more of a fine-tune control over where I want that. I'll apply that transformation, and I'll duplicate this a couple times, transforming it each time just to get it to fit each of these spots. And again, we're going to do some denoising on top of this. So okay. So now I'll create an in-paint mask and I'll brush these areas. Might select some of the building as well. I'm going to bring my bounding box in to get a little bit more detail on this as well. And what I may want to do here is, because I've got some overlap, I can see where the control image might conflict with this tree that I've got. I'm just going to go ahead and erase out the control image where there's a little bit of overlap there. And we'll turn this to about a 0.6 denoising strength and give this a go. And I'm going to turn down the denoising strength a little bit lower. These have turned out well, so I'll go ahead and accept those, and that'll be added as a new layer on my image. Now, we can see that I've still got my other raster layers here. If I want to keep those around, I can, or I can go ahead and delete those. Luckily, the undo functionality still is working here. Control Z for that. If I want to take a look at my image real quick without seeing some of the other information here, you'll notice that I hid my regional guidance information. So that's still impacting the generation. These are all enabled. I'm just not seeing that in my workspace. I can do the same for the control layers as well if I want to. The control layers will still influence the generation process, but I can kind of work freely while looking at the actual raster content itself. Now, on one of these terraces, I want to turn this into kind of like a parking deck and have a super cool futuristic car. So I may zoom in on one of these areas here and just make this a little bit more clearly a parking deck, and then we'll get a car on this. Do some in painting here. Increase our denoising strength. Move a little bit over and create a tunnel. All right, so now that I've got my little tunnel ramp down into our driveway, I'm recognizing from a design perspective, this is going to be a terrible user experience for our driver here. They're going to have to back up into this tunnel, to which we say, too bad. And now we want to get our car on the driveway. So we're going to go ahead and inpaint a car in. What I'm going to go ahead and do is similarly move to the side over here and get ourselves an image. I'll change to our vehicles prompt. Now, this is a cool image, but what I'm going to do this time is instead of directly using this inside of our image, especially because the orientation is a little bit different, I'm just going to right click to open our quick canvas menu. And I'm going to use the new regional reference image. That will add a regional guidance layer with this as its input image. And I'll go ahead and delete out this raster layer. And we'll move back. I'll focus in on this region here. And we'll go ahead and just quickly give it a rough shape in the driveway. Now we'll go ahead and do the regional guidance right here. Take a look at that, make sure that looks good. And then we'll go to our inpaint mask. Make sure we pick the right model that we want to use, and maybe bring this down a little bit for hiding that. And then we will say, go back to our environment art so that it matches the style here. Parked in a luxury parking lot. Driveway. We now have our car parked in our driveway with our tunnel out into this beautiful house. And when we're done with our image, we can save this out to the gallery. It'll save that out to our images here. And if we want to, we can go ahead and send this to upscale. So we'll take that to the upscaling tab. We'll choose whatever upscaler we want to use, put back our original prompt here. And for the sake of just running this upscale, we'll leave our creativity and structure sliders at the default, and we'll go ahead and just 2x this image. We now have a much larger image with sharper details. And if we wanted to, we could bring this back into the canvas to continue to iterate and add detail and edit. There are so many possibilities for combining different layer techniques, using different tools together, bringing controls and regional controls directly into the canvas, allowing you to make edits and iterate and inpaint while keeping those control layers and regional guidance static so that you really have the flexibility to move around a single composition. We're really excited to see what you all create with the new canvas. This has been the vision for a long time and the hard work of a lot of members of the team to bring to fruition. Up next, we're excited to announce integration with the Flux family of models. Since its release, Flux has quickly become one of the most popular AI image generation models on the market. A lot of people are experimenting with it. And ultimately, we're really early in seeing this model evolve and seeing what it's capable of. So let's just show off a little bit of what it can do. I have put together a prompt that is going to have a lot of problems with comprehension and adherence in the SDXL version. These are things that we've controlled for using things like the control canvas in the past, but ultimately this is something that we might want a good starting point for with a text to image prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and generate this just so we can have a baseline comparison. And for this testing, I'm going to go ahead and send to the gallery so that we just see that directly in our viewer. All right, so we've got our man. He's not sitting inside the cafe. He's outside the cafe. We've got a Caf Ravania. There's no sign that says no vacancy. Ultimately, it's got a lot of elements, but it's not really what we prompted for. Now, let's go ahead and do this using the Flux model. And we'll use the Flux Dev Quantize model just to kind of showcase the power of that model. Now, we can probably quibble about some of the details on this one. It was a pretty complicated prompt just because I wanted to really test it for comprehension. But there's a lot that this does right. He's inside the coffee shop. He's looking out the window. There's people in the background. There's a sign that says no vacancy. The one area that I think is maybe the point of contention here is he basically has this jacket on instead of off the table. But you'll notice that even though that's true, he does still have a plaid flannel shirt underneath it. So ultimately, we could chalk this up to randomness in the seed and maybe give it another shot. But we can see that there's just a striking difference in the quality, the base quality of the initial Flux dev model, and this isn't even one of the fine tunes, with the generation capabilities of prior model architectures. Now, what's really cool is that we can also use Flux to do everything from image to image to inpainting. So let's go ahead and take this old image that we had and bring it to the canvas. And we will just run image to image on this old generation here. We'll do that with a 0.45 denoising strength. I don't anticipate it will fix this text quite yet, but we'll give it a shot in a moment. So we can see that even with just a little bit of denoising, it has a pretty significant influence on the quality of the generation. Let's boost this up to a 0.7 and see what it does with that. It's improving the details quite a bit. Let's boost it up even more and see what we get. Now we can see it's really pushing things to where it wants to go. It's trying to get that no vacancy sign to make sense. It's adding a lot of details in the back. I mean, if you look at the people in the background with SDXL, you see kind of like a little lack of detail. It's a little blurry. If you look at these details in Flux, you get a lot image of facial details, hands, and kind of other attributes in the background, which is really, really cool to see. The other fun thing is that with Flux, we can actually do some light inpainting as well. So we can bring this in if we want to add some details here and do some inpainting on the face. And we'll do maybe a lighter denoising strength. And we can just add even more detail into the image. We can compare that with our original and see that it really just adds in an extra level of detail. Like you can see the kind of stubble on his cheek here. It's pretty incredible how much detail can be packed in when you are inpainting. And we won't touch on this in the video, but obviously using things like fine-tune models and LoRa's all supported out of the box with the 5.0 release. And we're not done yet. While we don't have some of the other features of the control canvas like control nets and IP adapters and regional guidance, we will continue to integrate Flux into the control canvas as the model ecosystem develops, as we find those models that really work well for the use cases that users have inside of Invoke, and as we develop a better understanding of how to mold Flux into a tool for users. And we have a lot of customers who are asking questions like, how do you use Flux commercially? For those working on personal, non-commercial projects, the Schnell and Dev models are available for download and installation in the Community Edition, completely free to use for those non-commercial projects. However, if you're interested in using Flux models for commercial projects, the Flux Dev model requires a commercial license, and it is available in our Professional Edition for customers on our Indie, Premier, and Enterprise plans. To turn on those models, you'll just need a commercial use license from Black Forest Labs. And if you don't have that license, you can reach out to our team. We'll help you get one. For the sake of experimentation, let's just see what happens when we take our previous generation and run it through Flux. Super cool. The last thing we'll touch on in the 5.0 release is prompt templates. We'll go ahead and generate a quick image here of a pineapple using a bit of an artistic prompt. And very often we need to kind of tune our prompt to really get what we're looking for. We might want to reuse that. In the past, a lot of users have created boards where they put in images that have the prompts so that they can use the prompt metadata to pull that back out. But with prompt templates, you can actually take any image that you've created in the past, right-click it, and use that for a new prompt template. What that'll do is open the prompt template menu. We can give it a name. We'll call this abstract surreal oil watercolor. We can insert a placeholder for any of the subject matter. If you leave this blank, the positive prompt will just be appended, but you do have the ability to specify exactly where you want your prompt to fit. So we'll do our positive prompt information will sit in the front. If we add negative prompt information, it will get added to the end, and we'll go ahead and save that. Now, if we clear out our prompts, what we'll be able to do now is add our abstract surreal oil watercolor, and we'll say a cat. Behind the scenes, when we generate, we can actually preview this. It's going to be submitting a cat with all of our style information and negative information passed in as well. We can flatten that prompt if we want to bring all of that out and edit it. We can also clear the template selection. So let's go ahead and see what our cat looks like. Strange and unusual, just the way I want it. What you can also do is import or export your prompt templates as well if you want to share those out for people to use. Importing will take a CSV or JSON with name, prompt, and negative prompt columns or keys, and we will export into that same format for you to share those with other people. This is a great way to quickly bring in styles from other UIs. If you want to iterate and create a list of styles in CSV or JSON format with the help of a large language model, those are a really useful tool to bring those in and have those available directly inside of the UI. If you're on the Premier version of Invoke's commercial product or the Enterprise edition of the Invoke commercial product, you can also share those templates with other users in your projects. This is a great way to reuse and leverage a core consistent style across all of the images that you are generating. That's it for Invoke 5.0. We've got even more planned for the control canvas as it continues to develop and as we get more feedback. We're super excited to be pushing the frontiers of what is possible in image generation and really driving the tool towards a more creative and human-centered approach to image creation. Make sure to keep an eye out for other videos on the new Invoke version to give you tips and tricks on how to make the transition from older versions or get started if you're a new user. We'll have extensive tutorials on almost every aspect of using the tool. We'll talk about hotkeys and how to become proficient in using the canvas as an extension of your creative vision. And as always, we'll continue to do studio sessions to show some of the latest in what we've discovered and how you can use these tools to advance your creative projects. Take care, and we'll see you soon.